Sure.
No lights on.
First, if we could do, first of all, Mr. Whitaker's here this evening, he has another appointment. If we could have,
Appointment.
Call the meeting order.
yeah, well, I don't care before we give the presentation here, but we can call him. Go ahead now.
Call the meeting to order, let the record show all members of the president except for member Davis and member Tuttle we anticipate shortly.
Okay, before we go into anything else, we'll have Mr. Whitaker come up and be presented with the plaque. Mr. Hassler can.
The keys to the new car come.
Yeah, we didn't wanna.
Well, Jerry, it doesn't seem like enough for all the years, but we're certainly grateful for your time. We're gonna miss you.
You have anything you want to say, Whitaker?
This is like a wedding, it's speak now or forever.
Thank you for making me first, and I do have another appointment. It's at the golf course. But I really appreciate it, and, like you say, 34 years went by pretty quick,
Yeah.
so.
It's been a
That
pleasure.
seemed possible.
We're gonna miss you, from athletics to transportation to building principal.
All of it. Thank you.
All the above. See you, Jared. Okay, you can start on the other, then we'll get on to visitors, we have a couple of things to do.
Actually, we're ready for audience to visitors at this time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went through roll call.
Chuck, yeah.
Yes.
At the end of last school year, Jeremy asked me if I might come over and entertain the sixth and seventh graders while he spoke with the eighth graders for 20 to 30 minutes. And I said, what do you want me to talk about? And he said he didn't care, which is dangerous. So I talked about Mayo School and Jonathan Mayo, and who the school obviously was named after. And prepared a little talk and gave it to the kids and enjoyed that. And they were in the Mayo kids tradition. They were excellent as an audience, which I expected. And Jonathan Mayo, I thought I might tell you guys a little bit about Jonathan Mayo too. He came to Edgar County in about 1870, and he first bought land out there by St. Aloysius Church. And then in 1826, he bought land in what is now Paris. And really, he bought quite a bit of land because it extended all the way from Water Street, Court Street, almost all the way out to High Street, and over to about the railroad, what the railroad is. So he owned quite a bit of land. And as soon as he bought that, he started having a home built on the highest spot in his land, which is on Wood Street, right east of Mayo School. Where, if you know where Helen McCullough used to live, that's the area that he had a big two-story home built with a big wraparound porch. Now, he lived to be 92 years and 29 days old. He died in something like 1885. And served, or he lived under a whole heck of a lot of presidents. And the land that he then gave, or what is Mayo School now, he did not give it to Mayo as a school because that District 95 wasn't started until later. The district, it was a seminary and had some buildings on it, and then the Temperance Union added a third story on the building for their meetings. And in about 1872, I think, is when the District 95 bought that land. They tore down the old seminary and built a new building for $50,000. Had 11 rooms and it was very spacious, and had the elementary and the high school there. And the high school remained there until 1908, which is when they moved into the new high school. And then that building obviously was torn down and the Mayo School was erected, the Mayo School that we know today. But Jonathan Mayo had given that to educational facilities prior to it being Mayo School as we know it. And he had been a school commissioner, so he was very much involved in education, believed in education. So it's only fitting and proper that somebody like him should have the name, or Mayo School should be named after someone like him. So I would like to give Jeremy this picture of Mr. and Mrs. Mayo. His last 12 years of life, he was blind. And he is on the porch with his wife, right there at the top of the hill on Wood Street. And he has signed this little document in 1841, and it says, I, J. Mayo School Commissioner, so we really got Mayo School written in there, not in that context, but I'd like this to be presented to Jeremy and Mayo School.
Well, I do appreciate it.
And there's a little history about it. Not guaranteed 100% accurate, but close. History teachers, we have the ability to stretch the truth.
Oh, that's nice.
This was a good month for Chuck. I also want to say I appreciate Chuck. He played against my kids at Fit Camp this month. We've been doing 30 days of fitness. And him and Carol played against us at badminton, and they beat us by 1 point. And we had a special meeting the night before, an extra exercise that day just to practice so that we could beat them. But they still came out and beat us by 1 point. So I appreciate him in several different ways.
Yeah.
We cheated.
You have a place for that, Jeremy, already?
Oh, we will definitely have a place in there.
Hey, that's very thoughtful.
It's one more thing I wanted to add, that Mr. Hand was kind enough, at the end of last year, he donated $500 for us to do something for volunteers. And the administrators have all met, and what they plan to do each year, they would usually do something in the spring, and it's so hectic, and you're trying to bring everyone in, trying to have a tea, and then kids are graduating and all's going on. So what they plan to do is this fall, right at the beginning of school, they're going to bring in all their volunteers, of which Chuck will be one, and do one together, the 3 buildings. And they also felt that would be kind of a recruitment time as well for the people who had volunteered. And they, so they're planning that, and everyone will be invited to that. But we want to thank Mr. Hand for his donation to help us to kind of give something back to our volunteers that come to school, which we have many volunteers that come in.
That would include the school board members also.
Yes, they are. Yes, they will be included. So I did want to make that statement. We have one other presentation I didn't put on the regular agenda, but Mr. Patnott is here from Crestwood School. He did give a presentation. He's the technology consultant, whatever, at Crestwood. He did present to the Crestwood full board last month at their meeting about some of the things at the new facility that he's been working on. He's been very instrumental in working with the consultants and all, and setting up the technology for the entire building and the ordering, or looking at the cost of everything that we will need. So Jim, the floor is yours.
And I'll try to keep this low tech and as
Very
informative I can. This is just a handout of what's up there, because it might be kind of hard to see. And it's basically a diagram of what the technology really encompasses. And I'm not sure exactly if everybody really has a grip on what we're buying when we say we're spending money on technology. And one of the things I wanted to do is just have an opportunity to let you meet, because a lot of you, being with Crestwood Unit 4, I don't get to know you guys very well, because you guys are in a different district, and we're very close together. And I have been asked to help plan the technology for the new high school. And as part of the joint districts, you guys are going to be part of those people making those decisions, how much money is spent in different categories. And I know that's a lot of responsibility and juggling, trying to get everything to work. But what I wanted to do is give you an overview. Basically, it's broke down into 5 different areas. And that's what I put across the top of this. We have the audio visual, and that's the AV stuff, which is our flat panels, it's our screen in the Performing Arts Center. In the offices, we're going to have flat panels and throughout the building. It includes video, and that would include stuff for like the STEM labs, where you do distance learning and cooperative learning with different industries and schools across the country. The IPTV, the audio stuff, which includes the PA system out on the football field, and it includes whether we're going to put speakers in the cafeteria, the amplifiers and all that stuff, and then our control systems, which just covers the ability in the classroom to connect things up, the technology together to be able to share that in a collaborative environment. And the next 2 categories, the structured cable and the cable pathways, are pretty much go together. The pathways are the things that the cables go in, and the cabling is basically all the cabling, which includes our fiber, our copper, both horizontal and vertical cabling, It includes our IT rooms, which are the equipment rooms where all the servers and switches sit. And the pathways, obviously, are the trays and the conduits in the wall and all those things. Before I go to the last two, these first three areas are pretty well designed by the IT consultant that we have hired, which is SMW out of Chicago. I was very in favor of hiring them, and I'm still very in favor of having them work on this project. It costs us some money, but it's very important to understand that these two middle sections, the structured cable and the cable pathways, will determine our network. If those are done incorrectly, no matter what I do at the other end, will not matter. It's very critical that those things are done correctly and to specs. And when they're bid out, you know, if someone like myself, I know how to do the structured cabling, but the problem I have is that what we asked them to do is actually put out the bid specs. This was the bid specs before we went to the redesign. And they put everything in here that needs to be done. You know, I could go, oh yeah, I should have did that. But after the fact, you don't have anything to go back on and hold people accountable. And it's very important that those pathways are done correctly and the structured cabling is done correctly. The way I look at it, it's kind of like building an interstate system. And building a one-lane interstate system with 15 car ramps. It doesn't do a whole lot of good. Be in a hurry to get on it, but you can't go anywhere once you get there. And it's very important that that is all done correctly. The next two things, the building security, that is exactly that, it's building security. It's the video cameras and it's our door security. So that's kind of something that's done in collaboration both with SMW and something that I've been working on, trying to get pricing and information about that. The last area, which is the IT equipment, and that's an area that covers a lot of things. And I'm not really going to go into much detail because it gets techy and I don't want to bore you with that stuff. But it includes all the routing and switching and the ability to connect everything together. It gives us the bandwidth to grow into the future. It's going to bring us into an environment that we can advance with technology. One thing I can tell you for sure about education, which is a lot of things I can't tell you for sure about education, is that technology is not going away. It's going to be here and it's going to keep evolving into what we're doing. One of the things that made me decide I would like to speak to everybody is BLDD. Mark actually came out and did a presentation with part of the board. And one of the things he did was try to compare Paris's new high school to Eisenhower High School in Decatur and started talking about the dollar amount of how much they spent per square foot. Decatur Eisenhower is spending less per square foot than what I proposed in the high school. But the thing he didn't tell you is that they're not doing a lot of the things we're doing. They're not doing any of the server side, the domain controller, the storage. That's all stuff they already had. They're not doing any of the security on the outside, the switching and the outside stuff is stuff that they're not doing. They're not doing, it's not even the same. If I take our virtual servers and our edge switching out, we're taking away about a third of the cost. So when he gives you those comparisons, he didn't really compare apples and apples. And I was a little concerned when I heard that, and I got in touch with some people and some friends that I had in contacts to find out to make sure we're on the same page. So those are some things that we're doing there, and some things that are very important for me there is the BYOD is something that, talking with Dave, is very interested in doing, and that's bring your own device, let the students bring in their devices and connect and use them here in education. Unfortunately, it seems easy to have the kids bring it in and it works, but it's not that easy because we still have to secure the network. They bring them in with viruses, our network needs to know how to handle that. And our network also needs to know how to handle, somebody brings in 4 devices, if everyone starts bringing in 4 devices, can the network handle it? And how can we control how many devices that you bring in? And that's part of the stuff that's included in here, along with our phone system, our paging system, and our bell system, which will all be integrated in together. What I am doing when I look at pricing is there's 3 main companies, which is HP, Dell, and NetApp, or Cisco. Those are the 3 top companies in the network side. I've worked with all 3 companies. I've got pricing from all 3 companies. And I've actually got part of them with Cisco, having their system engineers out of Chicago design our whole design for this high school at no cost for us. Their hope is we go with it, but it's free labor for me. So we've gone through a lot of meetings, I meet with them a lot, talk to their engineers, tell them this is what we need. It's important that I have certain specs so that we can grow in the future and we can keep going with this. And that it meets our needs when we bring the students in. The other thing is, I don't know if any of you have any questions about anything with the technology side at the high school. The big thing is, can we do it cheaper? Yes. And I'm not gonna lie to you, we do it a lot cheaper. We do it for $100,000, the whole thing. The problem is, as soon as you bring the kids in and fire this thing up, it's not gonna work. It's gonna be a marginal system that's not gonna allow us to grow in the education system and utilize it as an educational tool. So there are really cheap ways. I can go to Walmart and buy access points or wireless access points and hang them in the building, but it won't work when we go to use that, when it really comes time to use it as an education tool. So what I'm looking at are systems that I know will be here. We're still a little ways from the building opening, so I'm not looking at stuff that's at marginal life right now, stuff that will guide us into the future and give us those resources we need. And always want you to understand, if you have any questions, I know you need to make decisions. I don't have a problem with having questions either through Connie or through Lorraine or Dave, answering questions about what I'm looking at when I'm looking at pricing and putting these numbers together for this system at the high school.
I would have a couple. Does anybody else?
I, I am very happy that you are looking at the overall of the situation with the BIOD, because I was in a situation over this weekend, or this week, where we had 60 high school kids trying to get on one system, and it literally shut the whole system.
Yes, and that's
So,
what's happening.
I mean, it's a scary situation, especially when you're using it up for all aspects. So, I mean, that's a great thing, you're looking further into that. So.
Well, we're not far away from iWatches and all this other stuff
Oh, yeah.
where, it's gonna geosync with where you are and tell your parents where you are. I mean, without them logging on.
Yeah, the technology continues to grow.
Is there, I guess I'd have a couple of questions. If you had a wish list of things, are there things that we need to be cognizant of that may not be being talked about enough? I mean, I'm less concerned about opening day as I am 5 years down the road, to make sure that we're capable of handling those things.
Whenever I get into discussion with somebody about money, I'll never agree to cutting money that's going to affect their students' learning. That's not who I am, and I won't do that.
Right.
Everything I'm putting in there might be some things that I would like, would be nice, but we could do without and maybe add to the future. So when I look at, when we start making money adjustments, it's something that won't impact us today, but in 4 years now, if we want to add that, we don't have to rip stuff out. We can add and it'll plug in and continue to work that way.
I think that's the information we look to you for as well.
Right. There's some things like the virtual desktop. We're doing virtual servers and virtual storage. All that's going to be done. Virtual desktop, we're not. Not today. Can it be added? Yes. And the reason we're not is about another $300,000 to do the virtual desktops.
Okay.
And it's still, that would work in certain areas, but not in all areas. A graphics design virtual desktop won't work because of the power required to pull from the servers.
Okay.
But I am putting it in a position where that can be added in 3 years without saying, well, remember that piece of equipment we spent $100,000, we got to throw that one away and spend $300,000 now. It's not that way. These are things where you plug units into a controller and add on to them.
I was just at a college orientation, this brought it to mind, where they have a network at a school and all the students log into their network. Are we seeing how they do that kind of stuff so that we might look at the same thing, or is it a different?
Our students will log in and they will have to authenticate, whether they bring their own device or they use a device for the school. If they're logging in remotely, I'm not sure if you mean from outside the school or from inside the school.
In this case, it'll all be inside.
Right. What happens is, if I come into the school, I bring up my phone as a student, I go to connect, it's gonna bring up and ask me security questions.
Right.
Who are you? Give me your username and your password. And then what happens with this thing called ICE, it says, hey, that's an iPhone. And wait a minute, iPhones only have access to internet access. Or maybe student A has internet access in storage but can get nowhere else on the network. So we have software and applications that actually determine who they are. I can't just bring my phone in and say I want to connect, because we don't want that for liability.
Sure.
We don't want somebody driving down the road using our internet access for illegal purposes.
Right. But
So-
we're looking to get that capability for the student.
That is that, and you know, that's one of the things that costs some money.
Right.
But I don't think you can do BYOD without that, because you gotta protect the school legally, and you have to protect your network, like you were saying. You bring a bunch of people, bring all kinds of devices in, they fire them all up at the same time, it can bring your network down.
Well, to me, that access is as important as textbooks today, and at some point will be more important than textbooks.
Right. As far as access on the wireless side, we are looking at that, and that is something that can grow. Right now, it's going to be very dense in the learning areas. Not quite as dense down in the gym, in that area. But those are things that we can add. And also with the wireless side, what I'm looking at is buying units that we could upgrade without throwing away, because we're bringing out a new standard that's even faster than what's there today. And the units that I'm looking at, it requires us to buy a module to plug in, and we go from up to a gigabit, which is about probably 10 times faster than what we're going to be day one. But it's just a module instead of tearing everything out, starting over and putting it back in again. But that's what I'm looking at. And I really try to keep thinking of the future and keep thinking of, I have my vision of what I think school should be. And I really think it all needs to be integrated. And I think problem-based learning is going to happen. The STEM lab is something where I really think it's going to happen, where you integrate everybody. You know, if I'm working with an engineer somewhere to create something and I need something welded together or designed, I might not know how to weld, but you know what? We have an industrial arts department down here that can. I can give them the designs and work in collaboration with them. This is what I need you guys to build as my demo thing that I'm building. So we get students working together and using their talents to create a project that requires everybody's input, not just one person.
And that's real world. I mean,
That is real world. Everything I'm reading, that's where we need to head. And, you know, that's why the STEM lab is something that's very dear to me, and I hope we keep utilizing. Is it going to take time to change? Yes, because it changes the way we teach. And you've got to really allow students to be creative. And you've got to trust students to do things and actually have the capability of bringing outside people in, whether it's with colleges or businesses. You know, one of the things is it might be North American Lighting, just down the road from us. But working in collaboration with them, trying to help create a workforce down the road for them and help keep businesses in our community, will work helping them create the employees that they need. But at the same time, we're both benefit, because they can help the school by giving us information and technology we need, or we can help produce knowledge that they need for their employees.
Anybody else? Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks for your time.
You need your.
You can just keep that for now.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
We'll just leave it up there then. Yeah, good for you. Go along with something.
I think we're still in audience to visitors, actually. Is there anyone else for audience? Yes, sir.
I visited the meeting the other day where the architects and the construction manager were here asking for more money. And I got to thinking, what percentage of the total cost, I found my figures when it was 32 million. And it looked like it was about 10% that they were gonna make on that, but now it's up to almost 40 million.
7, but,
What is that? It's gonna be about 7% for the
well, I don't
construction
know
manager and the
overall
architect.
the adjustment that's been made, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I knew you
when we get
were.
to our committee.
Uh-huh.
But due to the fact that the redesign is gonna be significant to redesign the building, that was built in the contract, so it'll be, you know, we're gonna downsize the building some, but not taking out anything major in the building. But I can get you that figure.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to pull it right out right now.
Right.
Just,
Check whatever. And then we'll talk about that in the report of committees.
I didn't, it fell in the crack for me.
Oh,
That's why
okay.
I wasn't there.
Well, we're gonna report on it.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other visitors at this time, we'll continue on with the consent agenda. Everyone has had that for a little while. Is there any questions at this point? If none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. First and second's made. Any discussion? Isa?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Bailey? Calvert?
Yes.
Passes, yes. Secretary's report.
Okay.
Just a second.
Okay, we already covered the first item on the agenda, which was the plaque presentation from Mr. Whitaker, so he'll make his appointment. Next, we have to employ, like to have to employ 2 assistant coaches. Mr. Larson is asking to employ Casey Rhodes and Darcy Matthews to serve as volunteer assistant coaches for Mayo Middle School. I'd ask the board to approve those employments.
So,
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Isa?
yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Calvert?
Yes.
Passes, yes.
Okay, next, I always bring to the board asking for the support staff salary increase after we have our negotiations with the teaching staff. I have asked that we bring up some of the supports that we have, our cooks, our secretaries, and many of them are at minimum wage, so we'd be bringing them up a little more than the actual 3% in our contract, which would be about an additional $8,472 to the district overall. I would ask, and basically our negotiating committee brought this up, Beeland especially, because a lot of our sports staff, their increase is not near what it would be for other staff. So this time I would recommend the support staff increases for the 13-14 school year.
So moved. Is there a percentage approximately what that amounted to?
I can get you the percentage, but we just did the math.
That's fine. I was just curious.
It was different for different people.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. Isa?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Bailey? Yes. Calvert?
Yes.
Passes, yes.
Next is the bank transfer resolution. You have a copy of the resolution, amount of $70,336.57 to be transferred from PCHS billing account to the Cooperative General Fund checking account. I'd ask the board to approve the bank transfer resolution.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Isa?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Bailey? Yes. Calvert?
Yes.
Passes, yes.
And once again, it's time to approve the prevailing wage for Edgar County prevailing wage rates. Each year, the district is required to approve a resolution for the prevailing wage. So I would ask the board to approve this for the 13-14 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Isa?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Bailey? Yes. Calvert?
Yes.
Passes, yes.
Okay, next, our food bid acceptance. The bid opening was held on Tuesday, June 25th at 2 p.m. in this office. There were 2 bread bids received from Alpha Baking Company and Earth Grains Baking Company. There was 1 milk bid, which has not been unusual. We've had Prairie Farms has been our only milk bid for the past several years. And 3 grocery bids from Fox River Foods, B&B, and Gordon Food Service. Darla Davidson, our food service coordinator, is recommending Alpha Bread Company for our bread products, Prairie Farms for milk, Fox River is our primary supplier for grocery items, with B&B and Gordon Food serving as secondary vendors. And what she does is always then check the best prices on produce and different items when she's ordering. So this time I would ask the board to approve the bids for the food bids for the 13-14 school year.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Isa?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Bailey? Yes. Calvert?
Yes.
Passes, yes.
And Darla is also recommending, and keeping in accordance with the state's Healthy Kids Act of 2010, that we increase our lunch prices by 10 cents for our elementary and middle school. Middle school lunch is $2, so it would be $2.10 for the 2013-14 school year. Let's see, and if not, we sent in a survey, and we've been doing a lot of evaluating. There is another program that we could be involved in where you offer free lunches for all because of our poverty rate, but at this time we do not feel that would be the way for us to increase in lunch prices for the 13-14 school year.
So moved.
Second. Connie, it says we were required to increase?
Well, you either have to show that you've increased and made an effort, or you have to offer this other program, which they
Okay,
say
but
they'll
it's one or the other.
reimburse, but I'm not really counting on
That's
that.
fine, but it's one or the other. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, Isa?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Bailiff? Calvert?
Yes.
Passers, yes.
Yeah, you need to show where you can cover your lunches and you're not running, you know, a huge deficit, and that we have high poverty rates, so
Right.
that's one of the reasons like that. Our insurance renewal, insurance audit inspection has collected information for a commercial package, auto, umbrella, property and casualty, school board liability, and workers' comp. As you will note, the coverage for all packages except for the work comp, they are recommending we renew with WRM of America at a premium of $44,726. This would be about a 9% increase on that package, but however, our workers' comp, they're recommending we go with IPRF at a premium of $30,679. That would be then a decrease in our, of almost $10,000 for that package. So overall, our whole package would we'd be doing very well in the whole package coverage. And so selecting IPRF, I felt was a good move, and they looked into that for us. It's been kind of hard for us to get the work comp coverage, and for lots of places to get the work comp, it's been kind of difficult to find. So at this time, I would recommend the Board of Education approve the commercial package with the auto, umbrella, property, casualty, school board liability with WRM, and our work comp package with IPRF.
You said it was about $6K lower than
Mhm.
total last year.
About $57.93, I think.
Is that the normal increase from year to year?
Yeah,
We didn't have
it's,
it
sometimes
last
we
year.
don't get, depending on what we used to have huge
Oh, I
hits on
know.
our work
But I
comp.
didn't think we had a very small.
No, we had very, very small last year.
Sorry, need a motion to approve? I'll second. Sorry, any further discussion? Isa?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Tom? Oh, sorry, Bailey? And Mark and Mount, I guess. Calvert?
Yes.
Passers, yes.
Another good note we just heard, I always ask because we might have looked to go out for our health insurance and put bids out for our health insurance, and I usually ask Diamond Brothers to give me a quote very early. It's kind of difficult for them to do, but they'll gather it and get it for us so that we can make a decision as whether we want to go out to bid. And it's going to go up 0.8% only. We were very, very pleased. In fact, we have had a couple of years where it actually went down a little bit, but we used to have years where 10 and 15% increases were the common. So a 0.8 is, I haven't brought that to you yet, but that's going to be fantastic.
Especially this summer.
Oh, yes. We were pleasantly surprised, just heard that today, so I didn't have it in your packet yet.
Well, those are the things that Dave didn't have in the budget because we didn't really know.
He didn't know, he did not inflate it, I
Right,
don't
but
believe.
we left it alone, but.
You
that
did
was
leave it
pretty
alone, but
accurate.
he also knew that there could be
Yeah.
an increase, and every year, this is why I usually, Kirk happens to be our representative over there. I usually have him calling and getting any information, looking at our past history, and try to get us an estimate, and he did call
And
today.
that, I mean, the high school budget is pretty solid.
Exactly.
So
It won't be a
decrease.
huge hit to the high schools, so. And you had some informational items in there from Mr. Larson, and then when we get down to the next item, the report committee, we can talk
Go ahead.
about.
Go ahead.
Beetle, if you want to say anything, or Tom Tuttle and Beetle were both here on Friday, Ann is here as well, for a special committee meeting that we called to meet with the architects, the construction management, and with the committee that we have formed with representatives from Crestwood and 95 on their board to look at some building options and designs. And since we were kind of waiting to look at architectural fees and redesign costs, we felt like the committee then could bring a recommendation back to both full boards. So I think there were a lot of things explained.
Well, I think basically this meeting was more about VLDD explaining their side of it, why they needed more money. And more or less it's tied into a contract that, you know, on redesign, which we're gonna have to redesign the building. I mean, you know, so nobody's happy about it. But to move forward, you know, we kind of agreed and we got them to stipulate, I mean, you can talk about the hours or whatever, that they do an hourly rate, which would be no more than what the figures were that they were wanting.
They'd gone down 60-some thousand or 70 on their original price. They did explain to the committee a little bit. I mean, both architectural firms, we can say BLDD, FGM, whichever you want. FGM actually designed this part. BLDD is the primary architect. There's been a lot of discussion because our construction management firm did give quite a bit off of what they may have had to have done in this part of the process. So the representative from BLDD, which is our primary architect, came and explained that while that is the case, they do work off figures from your CM, and that by doing this part is going to involve about 1,000 hours, I believe, or however many thousand hours they said of their time, 111,000 hours of their time. When the construction management will be involved a lot more is when the building's actually being erected. So they did a nice job, I think, presenting their contract represents this amount. This was in the initial contract signed. What they did say, however, in I think the co-op and the co-op's legal has done, there will never be any more redesign fees. If this has to be designed again for whatever reason, which we hope does not happen, they will not charge anything for that. They also said, because the committee was very diligent, and the boards, I have to really give a lot of kudos to the board, both boards and this committee as well, working to see about getting costs reduced, even though it is in the contract. There was the fee that was finally settled on with their reduction for the redesign, but Sam Johnson from BLDD, the lead architect, said that he would also calculate it by an hourly rate. And if that, it will never go over what they asked, but if it is indeed under that, then they will not charge any more than that. He also said that he would be willing to go back to their numerous consultants that work under them, of which FGM is one, and see if any of them, like the theater design and the electrical and those, are willing to not have as much of a fee, because they are responsible to pay all of those consultants as well. It's not just their firm. So I think we came out of the committee with a
Well, yeah, I don't know,
recommendation.
I don't know that, I'm happy about it.
Right.
The bottom line was it was gonna go to a standstill.
Right.
I mean, it already
Project
had,
needs
and
to
that's
move on.
basically what the meeting, that's basically what the meeting was about, because it was a no vote at the co-op board meeting the other night not to do it. So we had this meeting and everything was coming to a standstill, so, and when they said that, and they kind of owned up, they made mistakes too, which meant a lot to me, because Turner always had admitted they made mistakes, and, and they weren't gonna charge anymore and stuff like that, so, we're gonna move on, we'll have a nice building.
Well, I think the benefit of this is everybody's been heard, all sides, ours, theirs, everybody in between. And I applaud this group for doing that, because it's a tough place to be. Nobody likes it. We need to put this behind us and move on and do what we came here to do, which is that.
And that's kind of what
Yeah,
we all
and-
decided. The end product's going to be wonderful, and we want
And
to keep
so-
our eye on the prize.
We all agreed as a committee, and basically what this committee is for is they're getting to the point where decisions have to be made. You can't run back, we want input anytime anybody wants to call or have something, but when they leave here, they need to know we're getting to the point, are we gonna do this, build certain things or not? So Tom and I are representing the 95 board on making a decision.
It's a lot more efficient.
Yeah, and Crestwood has Kit and Keith making their decision, so us four will decide, kind of what are you gonna do, certain type of things, well, what's the cost? And when they leave here, they'll have some direction, because let's face it, you can't get 14 people together every night, because they're wanting to know. And we're to the point where they're wanting to know what kind of walls are you gonna do that type of building and stuff, so
Well, it's similar to our building committees, our
Yeah,
finance committees, our policy committees, you know, appointing people that you know and you trust that if they've listened and they can bring it back to you, they felt, you know, we all felt that would be a much better way when quick decisions have to be
I
made.
mean, like Jim was talking.
Now, if it's money, a lot of money, there's gonna be.
Yeah,
more
there's gonna be,
towards
you know,
that.
decisions on technology, he's gonna wanna know, they're
Right.
gonna wanna know, we gotta go this way or that way, we can't wait, we're holding up.
We're gonna redo this.
It's come back to the point where time's money, you know, and we got,
And that's what they also pointed out, any delay, even a week delay, could put us to where we couldn't start this fall. And that was from our construction management as well. We're hoping for a nice fall like we've had, and we've had a lot of really wet springs, as you know, so they're kind of counting on fall being a more optimal time than even starting in your spring weather. So to get that certain things started and going in these projects, so as prices continue to rise, we want to keep it moving and
Yeah, it's nice we can move on,
Mhm.
move on and get started.
It was a very productive committee meeting, I felt.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it on that.
Okay, anything else for report committees? Public hearings and petitions? Unfinished business? Matters to follow up? New business? Right to revert? And we do not have executive this evening. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Two of each. Isom, Sanchez,
Tom, double,
Conver.